Hi, everybody. I'm Mike, and this is Mike Miller Talks Life. Today's quote: "We are not persuasive when we are abrasive." A few little facts. We have the freedom to speak freely. We can share our point of view, and we can share our beliefs. We can share our likes and our dislikes, our opinions. We can verbalize our disagreement with people. Politically, socially, religiously, food, diet, health choices, musical choices, clothing styles, ways that we decorate our homes, and how we feel about getting a vaccine or mask wearing or social distancing. We can share how we feel about all of those things. We can talk about how we differ in parenting styles. There are times when we feel driven to speak. I have a conviction. I have to say this. Maybe you see something and you say, I have to speak up. I think this way. And or we think, how can they possibly allow that? And so we have to say something we feel. Sometimes we are obligated to speak. Maybe in your family or with your children, something's going in a wrong direction, and you're obligated to address it. Maybe with your employees. Maybe a neighbor is being a jerk or doing something that's really bothering you, and you need to say something. Maybe a good friend is just making some bad choices, and you're becoming more and more concerned, and you feel like, I've got to say something. Maybe you need to say something to your boss. Maybe a team member isn't carrying their end of the load, and you need to say something. Or maybe the church you're attending looks like it's going in a wrong direction, and you need to say it. To these kinds of issues, you're obligated to say something. What if people are not responding right? Maybe they're tuning us out. Maybe they're not having any eye contact with us, or they're ignoring us, or maybe they're getting angry. We often think it's them. They're having a problem. They can't receive this message. If they don't like what I have to say. And that may be true, but could the problem be the way you are saying what you need to say? Many good messages are not heard simply because of the approach of the messenger. I find myself sometimes turning off the message, not even really considering it, because of the way the messenger is stating it. Andy Stanley says the right message with the wrong approach yields the wrong result. We've all had this happen. We've shared our point of view. We've shared our belief. We've spoken to somebody about a problem and how something needs to be changed. Or maybe we just shared something that we're really passionate about or excited about. It doesn't get through. And in fact, it goes horrible. Sometimes the person is just not interested in what you have to say. They think they're fine. But sometimes our approach is wrong, and they are simply turned off by how we're coming across. We are not persuasive when we're abrasive. Think about how you react to abrasive people. When people are pushy and they're arrogant, when they're harsh, when they're super direct or blunt, when they tell us their way's right, your way's wrong, when they say your idea or your way of thinking or doing something is dumb, that kind of abrasiveness causes us to feel defensive and angry. Sometimes we want to argue back, or we simply tune them out, reject them. and we avoid them. They make us feel like we're backed into a corner, and no one likes that. When people are abrasive, it's creating barriers. It's pushing people away. It's shutting people down. And no one is going to listen when that's happening. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be the guy that no one wants to hear from, that everybody thinks, oh man, that guy's way too abrasive. So the question is, how can we become more persuasive? In the wisdom literature from Hebrews, from the Hebrew culture, they believe that to use pleasant words is a sign of wisdom. It reveals that you understand the people you're talking to. And they also thought that gentle speech breaks down defenses and barriers. It actually causes people to want to hear what you have to say. I served as a pastor for 41 years in a small community in a small church. And I came to a point in my career of wanting people who didn't believe in the Christian message to come to church. And so we would have on Sundays in a room full of people, Christians and non-Christians, and everybody was welcome. And so for 41 years, I spoke to many people about religious and moral and ethical themes from the Bible. And sometimes this was hard work because there were people in the room that did not believe the way Christians believed. They were just checking it out. They did not accept the fact that Christians believe the Bible is the inspired word of God. They just didn't accept any of that. And so I had to work really hard to understand what they thought and why they thought that way so that I could get through to them. I didn't compromise my beliefs. I was simply learning how to say them in a more persuasive way so that the message had a chance to get through, to be heard. I learned a few things along the way that I would try to use as a filter. I didn't always do well at this, but I really tried to include these things in conversations and in public settings where I spoke to a large group. And I would try to say, how can I say it tactfully? How can I react to this discussion? How can I say this message in a non-abrasive way? Tact is the ability to say something without damaging those who will hear it. And when our thoughts first begin in our mind, they can be raw and blunt and filled with sharp edges. There can be a lot of emotions attached to them, and they're not really ready to be said out loud. So we need to learn the art of dressing up our thoughts and reactions and making them more presentable and less abrasive. And it really helps to try to understand the feelings and the values and the thoughts of the people that you're talking with. Your thought, your belief, your conviction remains true for you. You're not compromising, but you're being more pleasant and more persuasive, and people are going to listen. So, how can you say it tactfully? I also tried to work on how can I say it lovingly. People need to feel like you care about them, and they need to see you as kind. And it really helps to come off caring and kind if you see people in your life not as problems, not as people who you don't agree with, not as projects or someone you need to straighten out, not as a member of the other party that you totally disagree with, but you just see them as people who have value and are worthy of respect. And just because they don't agree with you doesn't mean they're a horrible person. They get to think what they want to think. When we want our friends and family and our kids to know that we love them. Excuse me. And if they question your love for them, they will not hear your message. It will feel like to them that you're abrasive, and they're not going to listen. I think a good idea is to take some time on a regular basis and just think about, do the people in my life know I really care about them? And how do they know? Don't just say, oh yeah, I love them, and they all know that. Maybe not. I mean, you don't always know how you're coming across to people. And so it's good just to think about it, and then to think about, what am I doing to make sure they know I love them? That's important. Because if there is somebody questioning that you really care about them, then they're not really going to be eager to hear what you have to say to them. And the final thing is just really simple. How can I say this gently? How can you be tender and gentle with people without surrendering your belief? That's the constant tension that we feel. But really, it helps. We can be passionate, we can be convinced, we can have strong commitments to what we believe. But we can still be tender and gentle with people. Jesus Christ was this way, very tender, very gentle, very kind to people. He had clashes over religion with the religious leaders of the day. But with just a general everyday person, they felt like he really cared, and they would flock to hear him. He did not compromise his belief at all. But he was tender with people because he understood people. People are more fragile than we think. You dig a little bit below the surface and you see people aren't as confident as they come across many times. So how can you say it gently? When we need to think about being less abrasive, it really helps to take a minute, and these will become habits that you don't have to take a long time doing after a while. Just how can I be tactful? How can I be loving? And how can I be more gentle with people? Less abrasive, because we are not persuasive when we are abrasive. Good quote. Thanks for listening. I hope it was helpful. Hope it made you think a little bit. If you liked it, I hope you'll click like. And if you haven't subscribed, I hope you feel free to do that. And also feel free to share this with somebody who maybe isn't hearing it and could benefit, you think. Now, that's totally fine to do. And thanks so much for listening. And until next time, I hope you have a great week. Thanks.